All right, so for 7b, we're going to work on factoring trinomials. So just to kind of recall and kind of get an idea of what we're doing, we're going to start by actually multiplying two binomials. All right, so you have options. You can either do FOIL or you can do the box method. So for this first one, I'll do FOIL. So I'm going to do FOIL. All right, so the first terms are going to be x and x squared. So I'm going to multiply those together, and I'll get x squared. So now for your outside terms, so I want x and 2. So x times 2, which gives you 2x. And then your inside terms, 5 and x. So 5 times x, which gives you 5x. And then your last terms, which are 5 and 2. So 5 times 2, which gives you 10. So with FOIL, you can either look at it this way, or if you like the distribution kind of method, so you also have first times first, or you could have the outer terms, and then the inside terms, and the last terms. There we go. So no matter how you look at it. All right, so from here, then what you're going to do is you're going to add up all your terms together. So we're going to have x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 10. And then you want to combine your like terms. So I'm going to add the 2x and 5x together. All right, and then that's going to give you x squared plus 7x plus 10. So this is what we're really looking for. Let's not highlight gray and gray. All right, so that's using FOIL. All right, so now for the second one over here, now I'm going to do box method. So remember, you can do whichever one. It doesn't matter which one. All right, so for box method, it's your Punnett squares. So just like what you do for genetics. All right, so I'm going to take my 20 minutes and draw one box. All right, close enough. All right, so I'm going to take my first binomial and I'm going to write it across the top. So each term is going to get its own column. And then similarly, with my next binomial here, 2x plus 8, each of those are going to get their own row. All right, so now I want to be able to find what goes inside the box. So in order to find that, I'm going to take that box value and go up and left, and that's what I'm going to multiply to get that specific value. So here I'm going to have 6x squared. Then in the top right, you're going to have negative 8x. Bottom left, you're going to have 24x. And bottom right, you're going to have negative 32. So if you can recall, your diagonal here, these are your like terms. So those are what's going to be combined. All right, so I'm going to have 6x squared minus 8x plus 24x minus 32. I'm going to combine negative 8 and positive 24x. Those are my like terms. All right, so you're going to have 6x squared plus 16x minus 32. So this is your final answer here. So if you want to do FOIL for both of these, that's fine. If you want to do box method for both of those, that works just as well. All right, so what factoring trinomials is really going to focus on is we're actually going to do these problems backwards. Now, very specifically, we're going to actually start with our answer here, and we want to end with the binomials from the very beginning. So we're going to go backwards. All right, so, and by doing that, we're going to do a method called grouping. So you're going to learn grouping as well when you get to Algebra 2. for higher order polynomials, but we're just going to focus on quadratics. So degree of 2. But we're not going to go higher than 2. But when you get to algebra 2, that's where you're going to have degrees of like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever. All right, so I structured this very first problem step by step. All right, so step 1 is we want to kind of solve the quote unquote riddle. So the riddle is going to be two numbers that add to b and they multiply to a times c. All right, so if you're wondering what the heck those letters mean, well, that's what we're doing right here. So we're looking at the a, b, and c values from the trinomial. So if you look here, we don't have a number in front here, so we have a 1, then we have a 9, and a 20. So those values are your a, b, and c values. So what I want to do is I actually want to take my a value and my c value, and I'm going to multiply those together. So I'm going to multiply 1 times 20. Well, and that gives you 20. Because FYI, your a value is not always going to be 1, as you can see from our value up here. All right, where'd my 0 go? There we go. All right, so now over here, what we want to do is we want to find the factors of that number, factors of AC. So our number here is 20. So I want to find all the factors of 20. So we have 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. All right, now here's the thing. With your factors, if you want to use a very strategic way in finding your factors, what you can do is you can actually go to Desmos or a calculator or whatever, and you can actually create a table. And let's say you want to find your factors of, say, 30. So here in Y1, you can actually do 30 divided by X1. So let's say I do 1. Well, that works. They're whole numbers. If I plug in 2, you get 15. If I plug in 3, you get 10. If you plug in 4, you get 7.5. So notice how it's a decimal and not a whole number. So because it's a decimal, that doesn't work. So I'm going to skip 4 and I'm going to go up to 5. Well, 5 works. And notice down here at the very bottom, 5 and 6, it corresponds. So kind of think of it like a C. Your factors should be in order from your lowest number going all the way up to your highest number. So it goes from 1, 2, 4, 5, 10, 20. It should be pretty sequential. All right. Come back. There we go. So now we want to answer the riddle. So we want the factors of AC that add up to your B value. So we want them to add up to 9. So I want to look at these factors. If I do 1 and 20, well, that gives me 21. That doesn't work. If I do 2 and 10, that gives me 12. That doesn't work. But if I do 4 plus 5, that gives me 9. So these are the factors that I want. So I want to use 4 and 5 for my next step. All right, so my two factors are 4 and 5. All right, so now step 2 is going to be doing what we call split the middle. So step 1 is solve the riddle. Step 2 is split the middle. All right, so when I say split the middle, we're going to use those two factors from step 1. All right, so looking at 9x, that's going to split to 4x and 5x. All right, so it still represents the same thing. We're just kind of splitting it into something that's a different form. All right, so now I'm going to take those same numbers over here. And now this is where the grouping is going to happen. So this is going to look kind of weird, but we're going to fill in the blanks. Everything's already here that you need. Notice how they're also color-coded. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm going to take the first set and I'm going to write those in parentheses. So that's going to be my first group. And then now my second group is going to be the 5x and 20. So these are going to become a group. So I have two groups. Now, what I want to do is I want to factor out the greatest common factor. So this is kind of referencing back to 7a. All right, so here, between x squared and 4x, what I can take out is an x value. So when I take out that x value, what I have left is x. Actually, let's actually use these colors that we're doing. Let's go back. Nope, leave that as an x. All right, so here, when I take that out, we're going to have x and 4 left. All right, but if I look at the next group over here, between 5x and 20, what I can take out is I can take out a 5. So when I take out that 5, I'm going to divide everything. So I'm going to have x plus 4. 20 divided by 5 gives you 4. All right, so notice the values in parentheses. Let's change this to red. All right, so these values in blue, I have x plus 4 and x plus 4. So I'm actually going to rewrite that in the bottom. And then what's in red, what's on the outside of the parentheses, that's going to become its own term here. So our two binomials are x plus 5 and x plus 4. So that would be our final answer down there. So the last step was factoring by grouping. So I know that was a lot of probably what the heck just happened, but it's one of those where you do a lot more problems and it becomes a little bit more straightforward. All right, so looking at this very first one here. So I'm going to start by solving the riddle. So to solve the riddle, you have to know your A, B, and C values. All right, so my A value is 1. I have a B value of 9 and a C value of 14. All right, so I'm going to take my A times my C, so 1 times 14, and I want to find the factors of 14. All right, so my factors of 14, I'm going to have 1 and 14, and 2 and 7. Now remember, I want to find the numbers that are going to add up to your B value. So I want them to add up to 9. So I want 2 and 7. 2 and 7 are the factors I'm going to use. All right. So now I'm going to split the middle. So over here, this 9x right here is going to split to 2 and 7. All right. So I'm going to have x squared plus 2x plus 7x plus 14. So notice how 9x and then 2x plus 7x, those are the same thing. We're just changing how it looks. All right, so now I want to start doing my groups. So I'm going to group the first two terms together and group the last two terms together. So I'm going to do parentheses x squared plus 2x parentheses plus 7x plus 14. All right, and then from here, you want to find what you can take out of both. So in the first group, what I can do is I can take out an x. So when I take out an x, I'm going to have x plus 2 left. And then in the second group, between 7x and 14, I can take out a 7. All right, so when I take out a 7, I'm going to have x plus 2. So notice here how these two binomials inside the parentheses are the exact same. So what I'm going to do is now I actually want to factor out those polynomials. So I want to take out x plus 2. So I'm going to take out the x plus 2 from both. So when I do that, it's gone from both of those, and all you have left is x and 7. So that's going to form your other binomial. So x and 7. So this is your final answer here. So also notice, look back at your riddle. look at the two factors. 2 plus 7 give you 9, but 2 times 7 gives you 14. So the whole problem is really just answering that riddle. What are two numbers that add up to the middle value, but they multiply to the last value? Okay. All right, so now looking over here at number 2. So looking here, I'm going to find my A, B, and C values. All right, so I have an A value of 1, B value of 11, and a C value of 24. All right, so I'm going to do A times C. So 1 times 24, which gives you 24. So that's what I'm finding the factors of. All right, so I'm going to have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. All right, so I want to look for the values that add up to 11. So if I go through the list, 1 and 24 is 25, that doesn't work. 2 and 12 make 14, 3 and 8 make 11, and then 4 and 6 make 10, so that doesn't work either. So it has to be 3 and 8. So 3 and 8 are what I'm going to use to split the middle. All right, so now down here, so I'm going to have W squared plus 3W plus 8W plus 24. So one question that pops up every time is, does it matter which one of those factors I write first? So would it matter if I write the 8W first instead of the 3W? Does it change the question? No, it doesn't. So really all it does is it just flips which binomial is in the parentheses. So you should get the same thing either way. All right, so once I split the middle, I'm going to start doing my groups. So I'm going to split it up into two groups. So W squared plus 8W, parentheses, plus 3W plus 24. All right, so once again, now you're doing your GCF. You want to see what can come out of each group. All right, so in the first group, so I have W squared plus 8W. Well, I can take out a W. And then what I have left is W plus 8. Now in the second group, between 3W and 24, I can take out a 3. So when I divide by 3, we're going to get W plus 8. So one thing to really point out here, you should notice the binomials in the parentheses should always be the same. If they're not the same, you messed up somewhere, and you have to go back and look to see what happened. But the binomials in the parentheses, they must always be the same. All right. So now, because these are the same, my W plus 8 and W plus 8, I'm going to actually factor that out so that these are gone. And then all you have left is the W and 3, which is your other binomial. So this is your final answer. So your final answer should always be 2 binomials. All right. So I would definitely say pause here and try number 3 on your own. All right, so looking here at number 3. So we want to find the A, B, and C values first. All right, so A value of 1, B value of 5, C value of 40. All right, so once again, we want to do our A times C. All right, so we're going to have 1 times 40, which gives you 40. So we want to find all the factors of 40. All right, so we're going to have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, and then 5 and 8. All right, so we are looking for values that add up to 5. So you're probably getting to this point and you're like, what the heck, am I missing factors? Well, actually, you're not. So if you notice here, we have 1 and 40, that adds up to 41. That doesn't work. We have 2 and 20, adds up to 22, doesn't work. 4 and 10, add up to 14, doesn't work. 5 and 8, add up to 13, doesn't work. So whenever none of your factors actually work, what that means is your trinomial is prime. It is unfactorable. It will not factor into 2 binomials. All right. So that's all you can do on that one. It would just be prime. All right. Number 4. All right. So if you kind of remember what I said before, we're not going to be dealing with trinomials that have a higher exponent value than 2. Well, we're not. So for this one, there's actually a little trick that we're going to do to kind of help us out. So we're actually going to factor out the GCF. So I'm going to factor out, if you notice, our leading term here is negative. So I'm going to take out a negative from each term. And then between 4, 12, and 160, I can take out 4. And then looking at the variables, m cubed, m squared, and m, I can take out 1m from each term. All right, so I'm going to have negative 4m parentheses. So it's going to give us m squared minus 3m minus 40. All right, so this term inside the parentheses, this is what we're going to factor using grouping. So that negative 4m over here on the outside, that's just going to kind of hang out for right now. All right, so this is where we're going to do our a, b, and c values. So our a value here is 1, a b value of negative 3, and a c value of negative 40. All right, so here, this is where we start incorporating some negatives. So this is where it's going to kind of get a little tricky for finding your factors. So we have a times c. So we're going to have 1 times negative 40, which gives you negative 40. So we want to find all the factors of 40, which we already did. We have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, and 5 and 8. All right, so notice how they have to multiply to a negative. So because they multiply to a negative, what that tells you is one of your factors has to be negative. Now look at your b value. It is a negative, which means your bigger factor has to be negative. The bigger factor matches the sign of the b value. So which means all the bigger factors have to be negative. All right, so now we want to see what all of these add up to. So they have to add up to a negative 3. So the first one doesn't work, this one doesn't work, or that one doesn't work. So we're looking at 5 and negative 8. That adds up to a negative 3. All right, so those are what I'm going to use to split the middle here. All right, so I'm going to drag out this negative 3m here. All right, so I'm leaving that negative 4m on the outside. It's just going to kind of hang out. So we have m squared. Then it doesn't matter which one goes first, so I'll do the positive one first. Minus 8m minus 40. All right, so this is what we're working with. So it's the same thing, it's just an extra layer of parentheses, which can get kind of annoying. All right, so I'm still going to write that negative 4m on the outside, but now I want 2 groups of parentheses. So I'm going to group the first 2 terms together and the second term, or this last 2 terms together. All right, so I'm still going to do grouping. So I have that negative 4 on the outside. So in the first set of parentheses here, I'm going to take out an m. So that's going to leave me m plus 5. And in the second set of parentheses, I can take out a negative 8. All right, and then that's going to leave me with m plus 5. So remember, those binomials in the parentheses, they have to be the same. All right, so I'm going to take out the binomial in blue. So I'm going to have negative 4m parentheses m plus 5. So those are gone. And then I'm going to have the value m minus 8. So this is your final answer. So that one's a little bit more involved, but it's not too bad. It's terrible, but it's not too bad. All right. So now looking down here. So this is where your a value is not going to be 1. So this is where the rule or the riddle is not going to be as obvious. But you still solve it the exact same way. So still want to find my a, b, and c value. So a equals 3, b equals 8, and c equals 4. All right, so I want to find my a times c. So 3 times 4, which gives you 12. All right, so factors of 12 give you 1 and 12, 2 and 6, and 3 and 4. Now keep in mind, we want them to add up to 8, which is our b value over here, which means we want 2 and 6. All right, so that's what I'm going to use to split the middle. All right, so I'm going to have 3k squared plus, I'll do 6k first, plus 2k plus 4. So once again, it doesn't matter which one you put first, 6k or 2k. But for my grouping, I wanted to be a little strategic and try to put my 3 and my 6 together and then put my 2 and my 4 together. But if you do the other way, it will still work. All right, so now I'm going to do my grouping. So the first 2 terms are going to be grouped together. And then my last 2 terms are going to be grouped together. All right, so now I want to find the GCF of each term, or of each group. So of the first group, between 3k squared and 6k, I can take out a 3k. So when you take out that 3k, you're going to have k plus 2. And then in red, your second group over there, between 2k and 4, you can take out a 2. So when you take out a 2, it's going to be k plus 2. So just to kind of give yourself a little hint to see if you're on the right track, remember, those binomials should be the same. If they're not, you messed up somewhere. All right. So I'm going to take my k plus 2. That's going to be my first binomial, so taking that out. And then I have 3k plus 2 left. So these are your binomials. No, go back over there. There we go. All right, so I would say pause here and try number 6 on your own. To make sure I get all my factors on this one. All right, so for number 6, we have an a value of 7, a b value of negative 19, and a c value of negative 6. All right, so we're going to do a times c. So 7 times negative 6, which gives you negative 42. All right, so we want the factors of negative 42. So we want 1 and 42, We have 2 and 21, 3 and 14, and 6 and 7. All right, so we want these to add up to a negative 19. Now keep in mind, because our number is negative, that means one of the factors has to be negative. And because the b value here is negative, that means our bigger number has to be negative. All right, so to add up to a negative 19, we want 2 and negative 21. So those are the factors that we're going to use. All right, so I'm going to split negative 19 in. All right, so I'm going to have 7n squared. Then I'm going to use, let's do negative 21 first. Negative 21n plus 2n minus 6. All right, so now that we split the middle, now we can do our grouping. So the first two numbers are going to be, or the first two terms are going to be grouped together, and the last two terms are going to be grouped together. All right, so between 7n squared and negative 21, I'm going to take out a 7n. So when I take out that 7n, we have n minus 3 left. And then in our second group, we have 2n minus 6, so I can take out a 2. And then what's left is n minus 3. So we have n minus 3 in common, so that's what I'm going to take out. And then our binomial in red is going to be 7n plus 2. So this is our final answer here. All right. So I tried to make it to where the numbers, your AC, I tried to make it to where this number is not going to be too terribly big, because the bigger the number, the more factors potentially you'll have, and that's just a lot of combinations. But I don't think I made any of them too large, if that's reassuring, hopefully. All right, number 7. All right, now for this one, so you have to remember those rules from 7a. So if you notice here, your very first term here, your leading term is negative. So that means you have to take out that negative first before you can do your grouping. All right, so I'm going to factor out a negative 1, which means I just need to flip all the signs. So 3b squared plus 9b minus 12. Oh, just kidding, I can take out a 3. Take out a negative 3. There we go. So you're going to have b squared plus 3b minus 4. All right, so now we can do our a, b, and c values. All right, so I have an a value of 1, a b value of 3, and a c value of negative 4. All right, so a times c is going to be 1 times negative 4, which gives you negative 4. All right, so we want to find the factors of negative 4 that add to positive 3. So we have 1 and 4, and 2 and 2. All right, now because it's negative, match the bigger value with the sign of b. So our b value here is positive, which means our bigger numbers have to be positive, which means our smaller numbers have to be negative. All right, so in order to get them to add up to a positive 3, that means we have to use negative 1 and positive 4. All right, so to split the middle, I'm going to use negative 1 and positive 4. All right, so that negative 3, just like before, it's going to kind of hang out. All right, so we have b squared. So let's do the negative 1 first. So minus 1b plus 4b minus 4. All right, so now I want to do my grouping. So I'm going to group the first two terms together. So negative 3 parentheses b squared minus 1b plus 4b minus 4. All right, so in the first group, I'm going to go ahead and take out a b value. All right, and then what's left in the parentheses is b minus 1. All right, and then in the next one, in their next group, between 4b and negative 4, I'm going to take out a positive 4, which means in the second group, I'm going to have b minus 1. So they're the exact same. So now I'm going to rewrite it and take out those values. So negative 3, parentheses b minus 1. So those are gone. And now I have b plus 4, which is written at the end. So this is our final answer. Hello? Everything's fine. Where did it go? Oh, it's gonna make me redo everything. Absolutely not. All right, so number 8. So it's an application question. It's still the same idea. So a rectangle has an area of 3x squared plus 6x plus 3. What are the dimensions of the length and the width? All right, so it's really just the same idea. So I'm going to take 3x squared plus 6x plus 3, and you just want to solve it using grouping. So if possible, take out a greatest common factor, which we can. So we can take out a 3. So x squared plus 2x plus 1. All right, and now I want to do my a, b, and c values. So a is 1, b is 2, and c is 1. So I'm going to do my a times c. So 1 times 1 is 1. All right, factors of 1. Careful on this one. It's just 1 and 1. All right, so we want the factors that add up to 2. So it's literally just 1 and 1. All right, so I'm going to split the middle. All right, so I'm going to have 3 parentheses, x squared plus 1x plus 1x plus 1. All right, and then you want to do your grouping. So 3 parentheses, x squared plus 1x, then plus 1x plus 1. All right, so in the first group, I can take out an x value, which will leave me with x plus 1. And in the second group, the only thing I can take out is a 1. The greatest common factor here is 1. So plus 1 is all you can write. So when you take out that 1, it doesn't change anything. It's just x plus 1. All right, so here, I'm going to have 3 parentheses, x plus 1 in blue, and in red, notice how we also have x plus 1. So notice how they're the exact same. So I'm actually going to condense these and write 3 times x plus 1 squared. All right, so this would be your final answer. So if it's asking for the dimensions, it would just be 3 by x plus 1 squared.